ADD or ADHD, or maybe someone has recently told you that you might or that you do? Well, I'd love to explore this topic today because that's exactly what happened to me. First, I'm Terry. Welcome to Finding Joy Over 50, and I would love to hear if you found your joy this week and what you found it doing. This week, I joined a wonderful friend for coffee and we caught up, and it was like a 3 hour meetup, which was fantastic. It was good for my soul, good for my mind. I got my new phone and my microphone, so I certainly hope that this audio and video quality is better than it has been in the past. I signed up for a cruise. Now, if you follow the Downsized on YouTube or Facebook, they have a Club Downsized, and it's a GLP-1 weight loss group. And you don't have to be part of their club. You can just follow them. And if you would like to join their cruise, it opens to the public August 1st. But if you're in the club, it's already open. And what they do is an annual cruise. This will be the third one for the downsized community. And it's just a great way to get to know each other and learn about each other's stories and learn from each other. So I have spoken with some of these people through YouTube, but I really don't know them. And I'm looking forward to getting to know some of them on the next cruise. It's 11 months away. We'll be going out of Fort Lauderdale, and we will be going through the Florida Keys and the Bahamas into Royal Caribbean and Celebrities Private Island. So I'm looking forward to that. So if you're on a GLP-1 weight loss journey and that's something that interests you, I suggest that you check out the Downsized. Okay, so that brought me joy. I signed up, and my sister's going with me because she has dabbled in the GLP-1 world as well, but we have both battled with our weight loss. So she's going to join me, and I'm really excited to have that goal 11 months from now. My goal is to lose 50 pounds in that time period so I can wear some cuter clothes and maybe not be so hot on the ship. And I've lost 136 pounds so far on a GLP-1. And I'm currently on Manjaro, setting this personal goal for myself. So that is a joyous occasion. And hopefully I will reach that goal. So I still have somewhere in the realm of 50 to 70 pounds more to lose. So, any weight that I lose before that time will be so great and so helpful. Anyway, so I wanted to delve into the topic of ADD this week, also called ADHD. I want to please put a disclaimer out there. I am not a medical professional. I am not a medical professional, and this channel is basically just based on my personal experience. This week, twice, I was told I was hyper, and I look at hyper as being enthusiastic and happy and upbeat and good energy. But I think it was meant as you're irritating and you need to take a chill pill. So what does that mean? It means I have ADD. Now, why am I saying that? Because I am self-diagnosed, yes. My son has it, and it is genetic, and I know he didn't get it from his dad, and I'm pretty sure my mom had it, and I'm not sure who else in the family, but it's definitely something that I've always had in the back of my mind. I just never really thought about it. In the past, I had been criticized for labeling my son or telling my son that he had ADD. Well, my son is now 27 years old, and he has always been very accepting of the fact that he has ADD. He is diagnosed, and there were a lot of signs and symptoms as he was growing up, and we tried different medications, but unfortunately it always changes personality. So, and it was hard to get him to take a pill and be consistent. I just was very fearful of the medication, so we just didn't go that route. And so for me, I just never really thought I needed the medication. And to be honest, there maybe I don't know. I mean, I truly believe that if you know you have issue, personal issue, you can't address it unless you know about it. So that was always my take for my son. With my son, was I think it's important for him to understand what the symptoms are, and that he can then address it. And I think it's helping him in his professional life now, and discovering if medication is right for him or not. There are a lot of suggestions that some of the medical professionals have made of types of medication and natural medications that you can use, or I should say natural things like changing your food, your lifestyle, maybe not having uh, what do you call it, like a fake coloring in your food. Those things will add to ADD. Also, types of food and food coloring, and um, just in general, there's supplements that you can take that will help. Now, I'm on a couple of medications, so unfortunately, my research has shown that even the natural supplements will conflict with, um, like my thyroid medication that I'm taking, for instance. And so I have made the choice at this point to not pursue medication or supplementation other than my regular supplements that I take. So I'm going to take the self diagnosis that I've made and try to channel my shortfalls differently, and see if my theory of being aware that you have this will help you overcome, and also focus you to be more productive. Now, I've done some research in this area, and I do believe that ADD can be a shortfall, but it also can be a really great thing. I do believe, from the things I've read from medical professionals, that ADD individuals tend to be highly intelligent and very creative. And because our brains work faster, we're always jumping ahead, and sometimes that leads us to conclusions about things that other people might not come up with. So I'm looking for those things in myself, because I look at some of these things as a shortfall, and it's really hard because when the comments were made, I think they were meant as negative, but it was also to be helpful type of intervention. Like, take a chill pill, honey. You just, you've been going, you go, go, go. Well, and I have. I've gone warp 10 for most of my life. So it's hard to slow down and take a breath. But one of the things is, excuse me, I think I mentioned in my last video, I know I mentioned in my last video, that I did an interview with the downsized, and I had the questions ahead of time, and I was a little bit nervous, and I jumped into this interview, and this was about GLP-1 weight loss. I jumped into this interview, she introduced me, and I just kind of took off with it. And I didn't listen. I just kind of felt like I needed to get out my story before I kind of forgot what I wanted to say. And that, I think, is a really common thing that people with ADD deal with. And it was kind of a light bulb moment for me that I probably need to do something to address this. And the reason that, when you're watching yourself back, I don't like listening to myself talk anyway, but when I listened to it back, I was like, oh my God, oh, poor woman. I didn't even let Lorraine talk hardly at all. And it was a little embarrassing, but at the same time, it was a realization. I thought it was a great interview, but I did need to listen more and talk a little bit less. Now, I was being interviewed, so of course I wanted to talk, but I needed to pause and listen in between. So that was kind of a big red flag for me. Um, and she was very gracious and said that she appreciated that I was a talker, so she wouldn't have to talk as much. But I think if you're watching this video, there were a few negative comments in that realm. So I do like to talk. I have a lot to say. Um, I'm a single person, so, and I'm a woman, and I think we have, I don't know what the words is, but we have so many words we need to say per day. So, hey, hence a YouTube channel. So, it's interesting, but it's a red flag, right? Maybe you've had that symptom and you've thought, "Oh, that's just me." Well, some of the things that have happened to me in my life, or I look at, I've always thought it was just who I am, my personality. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. I talk too much, mention that. I talk over people. I really need to work on that. Again, it comes back to the listening. I always wrote that off too. I'm Italian. You know, everybody in my family talks at the same time. I thought it was just learned and who I am. The other thing is that I have always been kind of a oversharer, an open book. I really have nothing to hide in my life, and I kind of just am that way, and I've always been that way. But I do think that's part of it too, is that maybe more listening, less sharing. And when I was in school, or even now, I pick up a book or even an audio book, and I'll listen to half the audio book or a chapter, or 10 or 15 minutes, or I'll go through a chapter or two and I'll realize I don't know anything I just heard or read. I think it's pretty common. Does that happen to you? Because I'll have to start all over. And what's happening is my brain is thinking, right? And maybe this is really common as a woman because women are multitaskers and we do a lot of things. So maybe men out there, maybe you don't have that problem, even if you are ADD. But that's been a problem for me because it's always, I've always had to try harder in school and it takes me longer, and I've been a terrible test taker. And I do believe it's because I miss a lot of the detail because I have to really focus in on what I'm doing and usually reread. So I've always kind of known I've had ADD. And maybe the hyperactivity thing was more of a fear of being boring or not fun or kind of blah and not having any personality. Maybe that's it. I mean, I do have the fear of that. Like, if I was to take ADD meds, would it just zone me out so much that I'm just kind of like, I don't know. Do you have that fear? Do you experience that? I really would love to hear because I really need to continue to work on this and just see like what I can do to kind of get a handle on this. Um, you know, I try not to look at it as a negative, but the way it comes through is it is a personality flaw for me. And yet I think I'm creative and I'm smart and I'm a great multitasker and I can do a lot of things, and those are the positive parts of being ADD. So I don't know. Um, I'd love to know what you think of it. Do you experience it? Is it maybe you're hearing these things and you're like, crud, I'm ADD. Maybe I'm ADD. Or maybe you've been diagnosed. I didn't want to take meds. I didn't want to do any of that growing up. It wasn't really an option. I think I discussed it with my mom when I was younger and said, maybe this is it. And then I kind of let it go. Her attitude was, "Ugh, you're just a teenager, you're full of energy, no worries." And it was kind of the same way with my son. But, I've always given my son a little bit of grace because he does have to try harder, but he is an extremely intelligent man. And he thinks really quickly, and he's got a funny, wonderful personality. And when I would give him the drugs as a child to try a couple different ones that we tried, he would lose his personality. And I think that was my fear of, if I looked at myself and accepted the fact that it might be something I'll have to do, maybe I was fearful of losing my personality. I don't know. Did you have that fear? Um, so anyway, I wanted to bring this up because it was kind of a red flag for me that this is one of the things that I think would really like give me joy in my life to get a handle on this. And again, I like who I am, but I think the takeaway from this is really that I could be a better person. I could listen better, talk less, but still say what I need to say. But I need to figure out better ways to do that. So I just wanted to make a couple recommendations if you are struggling with this topic. Dr. Almond, Dr. Daniel Almond, he's out there all over the YouTube channels and social media. He is a brain specialist, and he scans brains, and he talks about the 7 different kinds of ADD. They're not all created equal. Some people are not hyper, they don't talk a lot, they're more internally dealing with it, but it all affects your brain. It's all a brain non-stimulation. And when you have ADD, you're looking for a dopamine hit, right? So if I'm running late, I have to rush. I get a dopamine hit. If I make, I have 1,000 things to do, the stress brings me extra dopamine. All of those things I've realized are happening to me. And I'm learning to, because I've worked with my son with this for a while. How do we combat these things? How do you combat these things? Because I have to make lists to organize my thoughts because, again, I feel like I'm going to forget something if I don't put it down on paper. Kind of the same thing that happens to me verbally. So when I work, I make lots and lots of lists as I think of things that I need to do, and then I cross things off the list as I go. And in a way, that kind of gives me a dopamine hit. So it's feeding the ADD. It's helping, those lists are helping me to manage that noise of the multitasking and all the things that I have to do. I'm really looking for ways to combat the shortfalls of ADD and to capitalize on the really great things that ADD can offer you as an individual. Because of course we want to pat ourselves on the back for the good things in our lives and try not to beat ourselves up for the shortfalls. But I think that's where the understanding of this comes in. Because if we understand, we won't beat ourselves up. We can say, like me, I was like, oh my God. I think it was a couple months ago when I really realized that the things in my life that I didn't like about my personality were kind of symptoms of ADD. And not that it's an excuse, but it gave me the realization of, wow, how now I can look at this and see, how can I overcome this? What do I have to do? Lists was one of those things, but I need to work on the verbal part of it as well. So there's a book by Kim and Penn Holderness. They do comedy and parodies and such on the internet, on YouTube, on all through social media. They're hilarious. And they also do a podcast, I've noticed. Well, Penn was diagnosed with ADD. He's very ADD. He talks about it in his channel. makes parodies and makes fun, but he talks about the good things about ADD. And then recently, he used to drive he would drive his wife, Kim, crazy. And recently she was diagnosed with ADD, but her ADD is different than his. So I just thought that was interesting. Anyway, they just came out with a book called ADD is Awesome. The book has been, I think it's only been out a couple of months, but if you're thinking that, you may have ADD or you want to learn more about ADD, maybe somebody you love has ADD and you're trying to help them. I don't think denial is the way to help them. I think recognizing it, recognizing the shortfalls and the great things about it, and then making fixes is what the best thing to do is, in my opinion. So I am just starting to read this book, and it's awesome. I bought a copy for my son, and I'm hoping it will bring some things to light for me. Anyway, I'd love to explore this topic further with you in the comments. Let me know. Do you have ADD? Does somebody tell you have ADD? If you know how that you do have ADD, have you been able to overcome your shortcomings? And what are the great things that you found out that this offers you? Please share, because this is something that I need to work on. So I'm wishing you all wonderful joy this week. I hope you find it, and thank you for joining me.